Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gorilla Whale, a Godzilla watch-along podcast. I am your kaiju consultant, Kevin Carpenter.
And I am one of the unnamed female extras dancing ephemerally on a dais under the sea ocean in a transparent gown and white bikini. Kayla Knutson.
I love the outfits for the Seatopians.
Well, of course you do!
All of these movies have had weird aliens, but these guys, they're
not aliens.
Yeah.
Well, Gigan's an alien. He's in here. At first, I was like, oh my god, aliens. There's always aliens. And then I was like, oh, they're under the ocean. I'm like, they're Earthens. And then Gigan shows up. I'm like, never mind, there's aliens.
Well, that's the thing. The Seatopians are not aliens. They are just allied with aliens. Somehow, this 300 million year old undersea civilization or whatever not only has infiltrated human society, but has also made friends with the cockroach aliens that invaded us in a previous movie. So there's that canon tie-in, I guess. But also that begs the question, did they know about the Zillions? Did they know about the Kilax? When the Space Hunter M Nebulans came to conquer the entire planet, was there an asterisk in that plan where they're like, oh, but the Seatopians are cool, we won't mess with them?
Okay, so Megalon is a giant cockroach.
Beetle.
And the space... What?
He's a beetle.
Is he not a cockroach? I thought he was a cockroach.
No, Megalon's a beetle. He has, like, the horn, crown, and everything.
I see a giant bug, and I'm just like, cockroach. I was gonna make a Kafka joke, but I guess that was a beetle too, huh? Did he turn into a beetle or a cockroach?
He just turned into an insect. I don't know if they ever accurately describe the insect he is in Kafka's Metamorphosis.
If Kafka ever describes the insect? I don't know.
Well, he describes like the appearance, but I don't know if he ever says like, oh no, I am a giant cockroach.
I don't know. It's been like 13 years since I've read that.
I'm typing it. Hang on.
Novella? It's not long.
What bug does Kafka turn into? I guess the main character.
I think it's just a
short story.
Kafka doesn't turn into a beetle.
According to Quora.com, he turns into a giant insect, specifically a dung beetle.
Yeah.
So beetle.
Okay. Well, I wish I was reading the Metamorphosis in many ways.
So Godzilla versus Megalon, folks. Oh boy.
Because this one's boy.
This one's fun. And I think watching this one has shown just how far my standards have fallen in terms of watching these movies. Because they do the same thing of reusing stock footage, some nicely, others not so nice. And the movie makes no sense in terms of the canon that came before, and Godzilla's characterization has nothing to do with his original characterization, and there's a lot of just weird choices made in the storyline that are made for absolutely no reason, and made me audibly go, wait, hang on, multiple times throughout this movie. And yet, I still came out of it like, oh, well, compared to some of the others.
Well, okay, you realize that this movie is just a worse version of Mothra, right? There is an previously, undiscovered by the rest of the world society that prays to a bug monster to punish the outside world for their nuclear transgressions.
Oh my god, this is Mothra if Mothra was the bad guy?
It's a bad Mothra.
Incredible.
I was watching this, I was like, getting a lot of Mothra vibes from this. And then the robot guy started doing his thing, and I was like, getting a lot of Power Rangers vibes from this.
That's the thing. There's a lot of giant robots fighting giant monsters TV shows that are very popular at this time, and you can see their influence all over this movie. This feels like this would have been a special episode of Power Rangers. This is where we get really into the tag team wrestling aesthetic of these movies.
Oh, yeah. I guess this movie predates Power Rangers, so I suppose technically Power Rangers has a lot of Godzilla versus Megalon vibes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can definitely see where all of that comes from in here. At one point, also, one of the characters, the amateur race car driver, he's wearing an outfit that is absolutely Speed Racer. I was looking at it, I was like, he looks like Speed Racer. I don't know if it's I mean, it's not like a super one-to-one thing, but I saw him running around with his helmet and I was like, go, Speed Racer, go.
I will say that these human characters are definitely more interesting than our previous human characters in Godzilla vs. Gigan.
Yeah,
where it was like, oh, here's some hippies and a manga artist who doesn't deserve his hot girlfriend. And now it's like, here's this cool inventor and his heterosexual life partner race car driver.
I was going to say, here's two gay dads and their son.
Okay,
just
so I wasn't the only one that
best,
got that energy.
Being
Great.
attacked. Yeah, I'm like, I was like watching this movie, wondering, did I miss the part where they explained who these people are and who these people are to each other? And then I was like, no. It's just a gay proto F1 driver and his gay engineer husband and their son that they adopted. Or maybe one of them is the biological father of, I don't know. They could be, I don't know their past or their history. We certainly don't learn anything about that.
So the child is the little brother of the inventor character. So that's that relationship.
It's always a fucking sibling.
Yeah.
It's never a child. It's never a biological child in these movies. It's always somebody's drastically younger sibling.
Yeah, it's very Lilo and Stitch. There's no parents on the scene. It's just the inventor who's in his early 20s and this small child who is inexplicably his brother.
Nani is like 19 in Lilo and Stitch.
Okay.
Sorry, you said early 20s, and I'm like, and you said it was Lilo and Stitch. I'm like, to be very clear, Nani was like, she couldn't even get into the club. They wouldn't let her because she's under 21. Like, that's how young Nani was. I remember being 19, because I have a brother who's significantly younger than me, and I remember being 19 and thinking to myself, like, oh my God, like, if something happens to my parents, I'm all my brother has. I'll have to drop out of college. That's not true at all. That would not have been true at all. I have a large, like, family. I have several. My grandparents on my mom's side are still alive. I have aunts and uncles. That's absolutely not true. I 100% have a support system and would not have had to, like, be the sole provider for my younger brother. However, because of our significant age gap, I did at many times in my, like, late adolescence, like, have that crisis of, like, oh my God, if something happens, I'm in charge of him. I'm his legal guardian.
Well, speaking of looking into the past, do you want me to start the historical context?
Yeah, let's talk about this movie.
I love the story behind this one. So, in 1971 through 1972, Toho and Tsuburaya Productions sponsored a campaign known as Children Monster University. Elementary schoolers were tasked with creating the next giant monster. The contest was won by a child named Masaaki Sano and his monster, Red Alone. Red Alone would go through numerous redesigns. Originally, Red Alone was a bird-like creature with wings and a ringed neck. But everything but the red, white, and yellow color scheme was scrapped. Instead, Red Alone became a giant robot, more than likely as a response to the giant robot craze at the time. TV shows like Ultraman, Johnny Sacco, Kamen Rider, and Zone Fighter were very popular, and Godzilla would even appear as a recurring character in the Zone Fighter series. And get this, audience, we'll be going over one of the Zone Fighter episodes where Godzilla shows up to inexplicably save the day in one of our bonus episodes. If you want to access them, along with our bonus episodes from movies like Mothra, King Kong, and Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, among others, go check out our Ko-fi page. Link in the description.
What a seamless plug. I love that they made a contest. Like, hey kids, design the next kaiju in the next Godzilla movie. And they're like, this is the winner. We're going to change everything about it.
So sources actually differ on the final purpose of the monster created in this contest. Some sources say that from the get-go, it was this monster is going to appear in the next Godzilla movie. And then other sources say that they, like the monster that won in this contest, would have gotten their own movie. And then it didn't work out. And so they just kind of threw in Godzilla to make the movie work. I could not find a straight source on one or the other, though.
That is...
Yeah.
That's wild. I would be so pissed if I was that kid, though. Because they changed my design.
Multiple sources said that kid was pissed.
Yeah, they're like, you're the winner. And then they changed a whole bunch of things about the design. It's like, you just shouldn't have picked a winner. I mean, this is why sweepstakes for anything like this, of like inserting into a piece of media that costs a lot of money, it's a bit, you don't want to do that. It does remind me, though, of, speaking of children contests and designs, have you seen the Michigan's I voted sticker?
No, I haven't.
For this year, Michigan held a contest where students would draw an I voted sticker and submit it, and the winner, it would be like voted upon by the public, and then the winner would become the sticker like that you would get. And the backdrop is an American flag, and then it's like this white furred werewolf ripping off its shirt and roaring, and then it says like I voted.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it's so sick. I'm upset that this is not the national I voted sticker. Mine is just like the boring regular I voted sticker. I want it. I want the Michigan werewolf one.
God damn it, now I want a werewolf I voted sticker too.
Right?
Listen, that contest sounds like it went great. This contest, though, it gets worse.
Oh no.
So according to the Tokyo Shock Godzilla vs. Megalon DVD commentary, special effects director Teruyoshi Nakano deliberately made the final design obnoxious and unattractive to set it apart from all the other Ultraman clones. Red Alone would not even keep his name in the process. Before production, Red Alone would be changed to Jet Jaguar.
Which doesn't make any sense.
No, not at all.
At all.
Not at all.
It's not cat-like in any way, shape, or form. It's not Jaguar colors in any way, shape, or form. Justice for Jaguars?
So, yeah, basically this kid comes up with a bird monster, and then it turns into a giant robot that is specifically made to be ugly, that really only keeps the color scheme and almost nothing else. Not even the name.
That's not his creation. I would sue. I'm not kidding. I'd probably look at the sweepstake laws. There was one guy. There's a Netflix documentary about some guy who sued some company, and the listeners are screaming at me. It's XX, it was some dude. It's he won a free jet maybe from Cheetos or something like that. I don't know. A company advertised this sweepstakes, and then they tried to say oh no, it's not quite, that, this is your prize. And he's like, fuck you, lawyered up and won it because the laws of the sweepstakes specified that he got this much bigger, better prize than what they tried to give him. I don't know what sweepstakes laws are like in Japan, though.
So I did a quick Google. I think you're referring to the man that sued Pepsi for not giving him a Harrier jet during a Pepsi competition.
Probably that one, yeah.
Yeah, it was the late 1990s.
Apologies to Cheetos.
So back to Godzilla vs. Megalon.
Frito-Lay owns Cheetos, I think.
Back to Godzilla vs. Megalon. So this is another movie that has a very short production timeline and a very small budget, and they have to use as much stock footage as possible from previous films in order to stretch the budget. But to describe the production timeline, here's a quote from Japan's favorite Monstar, an unauthorized biography of the Big G. According to special effects director Nakano, quote, I remember it was a very short shoot, probably about 3 weeks. It went into production without enough preparation. There was no time to ask Mr. Sekizawa to write the script, so Mr. Sekizawa kind of thought up the general story, and then director Jun Fukuda wrote the screenplay. The screenplay was completed right before crankin'. End quote.
So it's another Godzilla movie with Godzilla in the title. What else is new?
Yeah.
Every single one of these movies, it's we had no money, we had no time, we made the film.
They still make a new Godzilla suit in record time.
The suit looked good. I noticed his eyes are really big and cartoony to make him look cute and friendly.
Yeah. No, this is definitely one of the cuter Godzilla suits. He kind of looks like a goofy, grinning dog lizard kind of thing. But Godzilla's face will not be the goofiest thing in this movie. And so, on March 17th, 1973, Godzilla vs. Megalon is released.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
God. So,
I think I could use some Jameson while I watched this movie, that's for sure.
Yeah, let's get right into it. We open on an underground nuclear test that is so powerful it causes seismic aftershocks far and wide. On Monster Island, Anguirus falls into a deep pit, and Godzilla is pissed off. Meanwhile, at Lake Kitayama in Japan, a young boy named Rokuro is having fun on a mechanical fish boat created by his inventor brother Goro. Goro is hanging out on the shore, having a totally heterosexual picnic with his friend Hiroshi. You know, a bro picnic.
And historians would say they're best friends.
Suddenly, an earthquake erupts, and Goro has to save his brother from a sinkhole whirlpool with a rope launcher gun that he also invented. As the lake is completely drained, the three drive away from the scene.
I think that life rope guns, or whatever it was they called them, I think those might be real.
I guess we don't hear them explicitly say that he invented the rope gun that he was using, but he's already an inventor, and it's implied that he invented that weird fish boat at the beginning. So I would imagine it's not much of a hop, skip, and a jump to believe that he invented that rope launcher gun. But if that's like a standard thing you keep around when your little brother is swimming in a lake, then sure, I'll believe that.
It's called a rescue rope launching gun. It's a real thing. Also called a Lyle gun.
Incredible.
But yeah, it's an absolute real thing that was invented to do exactly what they used it for, of throwing a line out to somebody far away in a lake that they can't get to otherwise to pull them in.
Well, the more you know. So as the three are driving away, news reports on the radio reveal these seismic events to be because of nuclear testing. Goro and Hiroshi worry that if these nuclear tests continue, civilization will sink into the water, like the ancient continents Lemuria and Mu.
Which are not real. Those are not real. They're like pseudoscience continents, but they're not real submerged continents. There are real submerged continents in the Pacific, not those. Those were proposed in like the 60s, 50s, 60s, something like that, as a potential, you know, they hadn't quite figured out plate tectonics yet, so they were wondering how people got, you know, and like the land bridges, like the geology. We made a lot of strides in geology in the 20th century. But Lemuria and Mu were like theories, like proposed concepts of megacontinents that got submerged. They are not real. Those specific like theories were debunked, but there are actually sunken continents in the Pacific.
The more you know, once more. Hey audience, this is an educational podcast.
I just mean, like, these are separate from, like, Atlantis.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, it's not exactly the same as Atlantis, because Lemuria and Mu are more recent concepts.
No, that makes sense. And we'll get into Seatopia and all that in just a minute.
Sorry. And at the time, it would have been something that, like, could have been in the public conscious as, like, a potential, like, idea. Because it was a new idea. So it's kind of like right now, if we were thinking about like civilizations on like Jupiter's moon Europa, because Europa has like a lot of water on it, we think there could be life, you know, it's kind of a similar thing. It just hadn't like been debunked yet by the time this movie came out.
Fascinating. Yeah, I never heard of Lemuria and Mu before this movie, so I looked it up. I'm like,
was
this
they're
another?
Not real.
Yeah, well, I looked up. I'm like, is this another Godzilla thing? And it's like, no, this was actually like something talked about in the real world as a theory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as the three arrive home, they find intruders within their lab. The intruders beat up Goro and Rokuro. So let's put another quarter in the jar for child abuse in the Godzilla movie. Hiroshi then gives chase in his sweet car, but he loses the intruders after they toss a grenade at him. Back at the lab, Goro discovers that a red button he took from one of the intruders matches some red sand left in the lab. After a science montage, Goro discovers the sand is from Easter Island, which answers nothing. Goro also completes work on his robot, Jet Jaguar. Outside, little Rokuro is riding his bike when the intruders from before kidnap him. The intruders use Rokuro as bait to break into Goro's lab once more. After they knock everyone out with their non-lethal pistols, because this is a kids' movie, the intruders use the lab equipment to contact the civilization of Seatopia. So real quick, why didn't they knock them out when they were there already?
Plot.
Cool. Needed to get a car chase in there, I guess.
Yep. They forgot the pistols at home.
They forgot the pistols.
They didn't think anybody was going to be home. They didn't know anybody. They weren't supposed to be home yet, you know. They thought that the earthquake traffic would be worse and they had more time. I thought the pistols, there's like a smoke that comes out of the pistols, which could have just been, the gunfire VFX. But for some reason, I thought that they were some sort of like gas pistols that shot a like knockout gas, and that's what it was. But I think it is supposed to be some sort of like stun gun situation, actually. And they just used blanks to create like a smoke VFX like a real pistol would have.
Yeah, it's supposed to be some sort of futuristic knockout gun kind of thing, so that way they can point it point blank at a child and then knock him out.
I just love it. Looks like a real gun. Like, I thought they were pointing like real guns. I mean, they just look like semi-futuristic pistols,
yeah.
But they look like pistols. And then they shot the kid, and I was like, what the fuck? There was no blood, but that doesn't mean anything in these movies. They could just not have had the budget for it.
It's amazing going from like All Monsters Attack, where the burglars do have real weapons and they are real burglars, but they're like, okay, but we're going to keep this kid safe because he's more valuable as a hostage to us. And then we move to Godzilla versus Megalon, where they're drop kicking this kid and like shooting him point blank with knockout darts.
Yeah.
So Seatopia. Seatopia is an underwater civilization populated by people wearing sheer silver robes, togas, and beetle horn circlets. Enraged by the nuclear tests disrupting their home, the Seatopian Emperor Antonio summons a giant kaiju known as Megalon to wreak havoc on the surface world. Megalon is a giant bipedal beetle with drills for arms, which he uses to dig to the surface. Little behind the scenes, I wrote bipedal beetle and did not think about how that would sound trying to say that out loud.
Is it bipedal?
Bipedal beetle. It's a little easier now.
He writes, I don't understand. Okay, a note for the listeners that maybe haven't seen this movie. When we say an underwater civilization, it's like a cave, I think. It's like an underwater cave, but there's no water in the cave. Like, it's not like everybody can breathe underwater. It's just this, it's submerged, but in some sort of air pocket, it seems, which is not incongruous with legends like Atlantis. However, I don't understand why it's a beetle. If I was doing an underwater civilization kaiju, I would use some sort of water kaiju, but I guess they're like, oh, that's old hat. Godzilla's a water kaiju. The fucking crayfish is a water kaiju. What's his name? Ebra. Mm-hmm. Ebra's a water kaiju. Yeah, they're like, we have water kaijus. We need another bug one.
Well, and once again, Godzilla lives in the water and also on Monster Island.
Yeah.
So, like, water kaiju don't really deal that much of a threat to them.
I guess they could have had Seatopians, like, contact Godzilla, potentially. Like, Godzilla's barely in this movie, but then if the Seatopians were pleading with Godzilla, then that would mean that Godzilla is the bad guy. And they probably were like, we don't want to do another mind control thing where Godzilla is being mind controlled to attack Tokyo, and then they have to break out of it, you know? But this movie is just rehashing, like I said, it's just a bad rehash of Godzilla. I'm sorry, of Mothra, and also Gigan, again.
Yep. Can I pause the summary real quick here to talk about the thematic implications of the central conflict?
I love that you ask me if you can pause the summary when I just am like, wait, let me interrupt you, Kevin, to talk.
Oh, fair enough.
Yes, of course, Kevin.
So here's the deal. We start out with the seismic nuclear test. That test is so destructive that it drains a lake, it breaks Monster Island, Anguirus falls into a giant hole, and then we never see him again. So, goodbye, Anguirus. And Godzilla is shown to be visibly pissed off by it, and that's also what pisses off the Seatopians. The Seatopians are like, this is an act of aggression, this nuclear test, and so now we are going to go to war with the surface world. And Godzilla is fighting the people who are pissed off about the nuclear testing. Godzilla, the specter of atomic annihilation, is fighting indirectly on the side of the nuclear testing.
Kevin, it's almost like you're accusing this movie of not making any sense.
This movie does not make any points at all. This movie refuses to say anything.
It's astonishing because in many ways, I think it's because we are moving further and further into well, I was going to say into the future, but I guess really into the modern day with each of these movies. So the filmmaking techniques get more sophisticated / more modern-like, more like what we are used to seeing. So in many ways, these movies look and seem better and better and better, and yet they're actually getting worse.
Yeah. Like I said, Godzilla doesn't stand for anything in this movie. Godzilla shouldn't even be in this movie, really. Godzilla just kind of shows up.
He's barely in the movie to begin with.
He's barely in the movie to begin with. But we're also so far deep into the real life culture of Japan, making Godzilla a mascot, that the culture within these movies is now everyone, without question, regards Godzilla, this giant monster who has destroyed Tokyo and has a body count, as a hero. Later in the movie, when shit starts going down, the main characters are like, man, if only we could call Godzilla. As if Godzilla is a superhero that will come to stop a bank robbery, you know?
Yeah, it is wild.
Yeah.
Ishiro Honda, he's not dead yet, but he's he's not dead yet when this movie comes out. Mm-hmm. But he's already preemptively rolling in his grave, I'm sure.
I mean, he's going to come back. He's going to direct at least one more Godzilla movie.
I would too. If I saw this shit, I'd be like,
Well, Jun Fukuda is at the driver's wheel here, so buckle up. So,
this fucking guy.
The Seatopian intruders have taken over Jet Jaguar, the robot. So the robot can guide Megalon on its path of destruction. They have also tied up Goro and his brother Rokuro and thrown them in a container truck as they plan to make Goro create an army of Jet Jaguars for their purposes. Thankfully, Goro's heterosexual life partner Hiroshi breaks from his own bonds back at the lab and sets off in search of his friend, his good friend, his buddy he goes on bro picnics with.
Why do I get the impression that he's, like, significantly younger? Is Goro, like, his daddy?
I don't want to go into that. They looked a similar age to me.
Yeah, and that's as close as we're going to scratch to that before we say something that's going to get us canceled.
Yeah. I'm just saying, if my male friend, like, if my friend Jason was like, hey, man, let's go over to this beautiful mountainside lake for a picnic as bros. Just a good hangout. Just chill session. We'll pound some beers.
You've never gone on a picnic with friends?
I've gone on, like, picnics with, like, groups of friends, and I've gone on romantic picnics with a singular person. I've never had one of my friends be like, hey, man, let's just you and me and your brother go on a picnic to this beautiful mountainside lake.
You know what? I'm not sure I've ever been to a platonic one-on-one picnic.
Yeah, right?
Now that I think about it. I also actually haven't been to that many, like, picnics, you know?
Well, yeah, and they have the blanket, they have the picnic basket, they have the sandwiches, the thermoses.
That's
like,
what makes it a
plates.
picnic.
Like, this is a full picnic with his one bro.
I guess I could, to defend the heterosexuality of these characters who I don't believe in because it's more fun to think that they're lovers. I guess if I was like, I feel like I have asked friends, well, this was mostly when I was like younger, if I had to like babysit my brother or something, or like take him someplace, I feel like I've asked friends to like tag along with me so that I had something to do while my brother was like off doing something else. But yeah, no, it feels like romantic. And I want them to be romantic. Yeah.
So, and also Hiroshi spends all of his time with them as well.
Yeah.
So.
He's a livin'.
Yeah. So, Seatopian agents chase after Hiroshi as he's trying to chase after his friends, and Hiroshi loses them in a downhill car chase. We then get to a weirdly confusing sequence where one of the Seatopian intruders is holding two truck drivers at gunpoint while they're driving the container truck that has Goro and Rokuro. But then the truck drivers throw the intruder out of the truck. The truck drivers, no longer being held hostage, then park and move to drop the container containing Goro and Rokuro off of the top of a dam. They're not being held hostage anymore. They no longer need to fulfill this mission. They're just doing it anyway, I guess. Hiroshi arrives in time to stop them, but then the truck drivers steal Hiroshi's car instead of driving away in their own truck.
But also, the truck drivers make a comment about this guy paying them 100,000 yen or maybe it was $100,000 in the subtitles. I don't know, whatever. They're getting paid money to do this, but then it's like, never mind, they're being held hostage. And they decide to go along, to dump this anyway. Like, did they think that they were going to be arrested and they're trying to get rid of the evidence anyway? Like, again, this movie doesn't make a lick of sense.
Well, and then it gets worse.
And that's really saying something.
Well, and then it gets worse. I'm trying my best to describe this like a coherent sequence. So, container truck is now like half tipped over to drop Goro and Rokuro off the top of this dam. And then Megalon shows up. So Megalon breaks through the dam, causing the container containing Goro and Rokuro to fall, but then Megalon bats the container a mile away with its drill hand. Like, this container goes flying over a hill. And then after hurtling through the air and landing in an unsecured steel box on hard earth, Goro and Rokuro are totally fine, completely uninjured. They have all of their bones.
You think that a kaiju film gives a shit about physics? If we're obeying the laws of physics, we really need to work backwards. There's a lot to unpack.
So anyway.
I want to start. Just wait till we get to the Godzilla tail glide.
Oh, boy.
If you want to complain about the laws of physics.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a moment. So anyway, Goro reveals that he had a remote control for Jet Jaguar this whole time, but it requires line of sight, which is why he couldn't use it. That's the one explanation we're going to get in this movie for anything fucking making sense, by the way. Any decisions. Like, oh, I had this remote control, but I got to look at Jet Jaguar because I can't see what he's doing.
It's like a D&D spell.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you have to be able to see the target that you're casting it on. Otherwise, it would be way too powerful of a spell.
Yeah. So the Japanese Special Defense Forces, they show up. They're getting blown up by Megalon's beetle horn lasers. So you got to have at least one scene where the army just gets blown to hell in these movies.
Yeah.
They have one win, and it's against Anguirus in the previous movie. So they're riding high off that.
Damn. Justice for Anguirus.
So Goro hops a ride on a JSDF helicopter and uses his new vantage point to take control of Jet Jaguar once more. Jet Jaguar's new mission: fly to Monster Island and get Godzilla. So, without Jet Jaguar, the Seatopian Emperor contacts the M-Space Hunter Nebula aliens and requests reinforcements from Gigan. Why the underwater?
At no point.
Yeah.
At no point do we establish until now that they have an alliance with the aliens from the previous film, which also, these movies don't necessarily keep a super strict canon timeline. I was shocked that we were seeing these guys again.
Right?
Honestly. I like to think the Zillions are just...
The Zillions are
on
still...
their planet.
There was an off-screen interspace war going on with the Zillions. Like, we're watching the Godzilla movies, but like there is a secret movie to be made of the GSDF having a fight on Jupiter with like the remaining Zillion forces, because they did declare open war.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and they sent the astronauts back.
Yeah, the astronauts got sent back. There's a whole diplomatic situation now.
I like to think that the the Seatopians called Planet X, and they're like, hey guys, we're like an underground civilization on Earth. We despise the surface world, who are also your enemies. We're linking up with Space Hunter Nebula M, or whatever the fuck they're called. Do you guys want in on this? And they're like, we're gonna have to call you back. Glenn the astronaut is busy seducing all of our women that look exactly alike and kicking our asses. Bye. Like...
That is my unofficial epilogue for Glenn the astronaut, is that he's just spending years just over on Planet X, just seducing all of the cloned women and beating up all the Zillions single-handedly.
He is like the power fantasy guy of like early mid 20th century science fiction novel. Like, this is John Carter of Mars over here.
God. So The boys successfully take back their lab from the Seatopian intruder. And just as Megalon lays waste to Tokyo, Jet Jaguar returns and communicates that Godzilla is coming before flying off on its own accord.
Yeah, and they're like, it's sentient.
Yeah, Goro and Hiroshi comment that Jet Jaguar has gained a will of his own and has also spontaneously generated the ability to grow to a large size. Literally, they're just like, oh, I guess he can do that now. And no one interrogates why.
He goes full Skynet and then also grows to kaiju size. Once again, disobeying the laws of physics, the conservation of mass.
And it's like
or matter.
We know what movie we're watching. It would be so easy to just write Jet Jaguar has a complex defense program, so that's why he's able to do martial arts against the monsters, and also write that they programmed a size-changing function in the robot. That's all you need to do.
Or they would just say, I think that it's just that Goro has been running a secret defense contract with the Japanese Defense Forces to build a giant robot to defend Japan against kaiju attacks. And this is Jet Jaguar Jr. is like the mini model, and then they transfer its consciousness into the giant robot. I mean, it's like giant robot. I mean, this is all, Pacific Rim fodder here. But like that, like they could just do that. Like that would make more sense to me than he just can be big now.
Yeah, and he just has sentience now. A sentience that comes up when there is giant monsters and then immediately goes away when the giant monsters are gone.
Yeah.
And that is terrifying. But no one reacts like it's terrifying.
Yeah, they're like, oh, at the end, when it's no longer under its own willpower, they're like, oh, I guess now that it's fulfilled its duty, it's okay with being subservient. This movie is making incredibly drastic claims and assertions and all of these things. There's so much to unpack here, and it absolutely refuses to even check the bag. It's wild.
They're just saying whatever they want in this movie, and it's dumbfounding because there are much easier things to say. But no, we're gonna do it this way.
Yeah.
Because fuck you.
It's not even like this is the first... It doesn't even feel like this is the first thing they thought of. It feels like the first thing they thought of, they're like, no, that's too easy. And then they pick something else for no reason. It's so... Because again, like, they introduced the Planet Hunter, Nebula M, whatever, aliens off of one line of dialogue, and they're like, and now Gigan is here. So it's like, again... Why not just throw in a line of dialogue that mentions something that wasn't set up, but at least it would be slightly better than just randomly the robot changes size. Like, it's baffling.
And they did put in a line of dialogue. And the line of dialogue is that they think that Jet Jaguar's determination caused him to grow big. This robot gained sentience and changed size out of sheer willpower, I guess.
See, this is why I'm absolutely... Because, like, at the beginning of this movie, they mention real scientific, or pseudoscientific at least, theories surrounding these, like, sunken continents in order to lend an air of legitimacy and science to this science fiction. And then they immediately toss out anything like that and just go balls to the walls of, like, it's magic. And I mean, I'm not opposed to magic in these movies. Like, Mothra is all magic. But it's so weird because it's like, we're not in magic mode. We're in full, like, you have robots and aliens. This is supposed to be full science fiction, no magic. And yet the robot is magically growing power. Like, it's just, it seems like maliciously lazy. It is sloppy to a degree that feels incredibly intentional. Like, they were just like, fuck you, this entire movie. They're like, you know what, I thought of something that makes sense. and then let's just do something worse to see if we can get away with it.
Yeah.
This movie is a fucking social experiment a la Cole Sprouse in like 2014 Tumblr. Like, it is insane. Everybody should be fired.
So Jet Jaguar.
Yeah, fucking Jet Jaguar. It doesn't even look like a cat. He doesn't even look like a cat.
He doesn't even look like a cat. He looks like a weird bird knight thing. So Jet Jaguar, he takes on Megalon to buy time until Godzilla arrives. Jet Jaguar initially holds his own, even when Megalon drills into the ground and starts doing reverse whack-a-mole tactics, popping out of the earth again and again to hit Jet Jaguar.
I love that shit.
But then Gigan appears on the scene, and the two just beat the hell out of Jet Jaguar. It is no longer a fair fight. By the way, I do love the energy of the Gigan Megalon team up. Like, Gigan King Ghidorah was mind controlled. He couldn't move a whole lot. They didn't really have, like, chemistry. Gigan and Megalon, though, like, they're both doing kaiju laughs. They're, like, clinking their weapon arms together as a taunt. Like, these guys feel like a tag team duo. I love it.
Absolutely. WWE was like, we need a tag team heel team pair.
Mm-hmm.
And they put these two together. They did the chemistry reads. It was great. The writers were popping off, etc. I will note that I do think it's really funny that at least once in all of these movies, one kaiju needs to be face down in the dirt, getting the absolute shit kicked out of it by one or more other kaiju. Like, it has happened every single time. Like, face down in the dirt, curb stomping. And then usually that's like when Godzilla comes in, of course, because all of these movies are too much the same in so many ways. Like, it's the same fucking thing, and it's getting exhausting.
Godzilla does get, like, the WWE entrance.
Yeah.
Like, he comes in, the theme plays, there's a very long walking sequence of him coming into the scene.
I like the bits when he's, like, swimming in the ocean and you just see his little head, like, on the surface. Like the iceberg. Like, you've no idea how much is below this. I thought it was very funny, just seeing his little head breaking through the water on his way. He's like, I'm coming.
Godzilla's also apparently been taking some classes at the Y, because all of the monsters in this movie, like, pose at each other and throw punches and throw up their dukes and all that.
Yeah, it's super wrestler coded.
So the real fight starts. Godzilla holds his own, but Jet Jaguar struggles to keep up. At one point, Gigan holds a blade to Jet Jaguar's robot throat, but Godzilla uses his atomic breath to free his tag team partner. Megalon then uses his napalm bombs to surround the two in a ring of fire. Even though Godzilla causes these kinds of fires literally every movie, he is somehow too scared to just walk through the fire. So, Jet Jaguar grabs Godzilla and flies him out of the ring.
I just realized another plot hole.
What's up?
A scientific plot hole.
Okay.
So when a nuclear bomb goes off, it tends to act... now I'm doubting myself, but I don't know why a poorly done science fiction film would cause me doubt like this. Like, when a nuclear bomb goes off, it's kind of like an EMP, and it shuts down, like, electricity in the area, right?
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't Godzilla's atomic breath have affected the electronics in the robot?
Oh, and Jet Jaguar?
Yeah.
No, because Jet Jaguar is sentient. Jet Jaguar has determination.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, of course. So
Of course.
silly of me to expect a modicum of science. A modicum of realistic science.
Well, we don't have time for all that science bullshit. It's payback time. Godzilla messes up Megalon and Gigan with the worst rendered atomic breaths we've seen so far. They are at different angles from where his mouth is. They're just bad. And then
they didn't even phone this one in. They, like, left a voicemail and called it good.
Gigan flies away like a punk. He doesn't even get to use his little buzzsaw chest. He only gets to use his arm blades. And then he just flies away when he's just like, fuck this. This is too much. So then Jet Jaguar and Godzilla set up their finishing move. In another moment that lives in Godzilla infamy, up there with the Shie dance and the flying atomic breath, Jet Jaguar holds Megalon's arms so Godzilla can hit him with a flying dropkick twice in a row.
Yeah, but what he does is he backs up and then surfs on his tail over the ground to hit this guy with his legs like a battering ram.
Yeah.
Twice!
Yeah, he walks like a mile away, and then he jumps up, goes perpendicular to the ground, flies forward, tail scraping the dirt, and he drop kicks Megalon. And then he sets that up and does it again.
His tail is like perpendicular to the ground, but he's parallel.
He's parallel to the ground, you're right.
He like makes like an L. He makes like an L shape.
Yes.
Or a T, I
guess
suppose.
It would be a T because the tail's kind of in the middle there.
Yeah, because it's rough.
Yeah. So after the Godzilla double drop kick special, Megalon escapes back underground. The Seatopians admit defeat and seal away any fissures to their civilization. Godzilla and Jet Jaguar share a manly handshake before Godzilla once more walks off into the horizon. Jet Jaguar returns to his regular size, and the robot's free will is inexplicably gone. But perhaps it will return when the world needs Jet Jaguar again. Roll credits, fade to black, little phrase on the screen, Jet Jaguar will not return. Well, technically he'll return in like a later anime in I think 2022, but no, this is the last time we see Jet Jaguar in any of these movies.
Yeah, they can't pay this kid money. Do you think... That's the other thing, too. They farmed ideas from these children for a kaiju. Probably didn't pay them any. I don't think this kid saw a drop of the box office. And then they changed his entire idea. And then the movie sucked. I think if I was that kid, I would take this to my grave. Nobody would know that I had anything to do with this. I'd completely disown it.
Here's something really interesting, though. This movie was one of the most well-known Godzilla movies in the United States. So this quote is taken from Japan's favorite Monstar, the unauthorized biography of the Big G. Love that book. Quote, ironically, this is one of the most widely seen Godzilla movies in the Western world, owing to a wide and successful theatrical release in summer 1976, and the film's subsequent primetime premiere in summer 1977 on the NBC TV network, hosted by comedian John Belushi wearing a Godzilla costume used in Joe Dante's comedy Hollywood Boulevard, end quote. The movie that they aired, by the way, was of course, the English dub, and it was cut down to 40 minutes to premiere in primetime. But that was most people's, like, big familiarity with Godzilla movies, was this shit movie cut down to 40 minutes with the shitty English dubs. And they were like, oh, okay, so that's Godzilla.
This is horrifying. I hate this.
There was also a publicity campaign for Godzilla for president during the 76th Democratic National Convention. When Jimmy Carter received the Democratic nomination, women in bikinis marched out on the convention floor and chanted, Godzilla for vice president.
Do you think that Godzilla will go to Jimmy Carter's funeral? When it happens? What if he dies in between the recording of this podcast and when it airs?
He has to honor his running mate.
Oh my god. I don't know who Jimmy Carter's vice president was, but I guess maybe Godzilla was considered a little too radical, perhaps.
Mm.
For the peanut farmer from Georgia.
God, I wish I had one of those Godzilla for president bumper stickers. Those sound like a lot of fun.
We could probably make them.
Godzilla
2028?
So in conclusion, this is a movie that starts with nuclear testing. So you think like, oh, okay, so we're going back to our roots. And then we don't actually touch the thematics of that. Godzilla's actually fighting on the side of nuclear testing inadvertently. But really, this is just a movie where Godzilla shows up to do some tag team monster wrestling with a robot that was originally a bird created by an elementary schooler, and then they just completely changed the design of the robot specifically to be ugly.
You mean to tell me that this movie seemed like it was going to make radical, progressive statements and then did absolutely nothing, and the specter of atomic annihilation sold out to fight for nuclear testing instead of against it. You're telling me that this movie stands for nothing? No wonder the Democrats loved it.
God.
Do not, by the way, I'm not a fucking Republican. Just to be very clear, if any listener took that as like, oh, Kayla's Republican. No, I am not a Republican.
I'm Kaiju-tarian.
I just like making shots at the Democrats. We're not going to get political. We get political on this podcast because Godzilla movies are inherently political.
No, actually, let's get political real quick. Which kaiju would you actually want for president?
Mothra.
Oh, of course. You're right. Yes.
Mothra is the most... Mothra, I genuinely think of all of the kaiju that Mothra is the most even-tempered, peaceful, yet assertive option. Godzilla is, I think, a little bit too much of a wild card. I feel like Godzilla could have a position in Mothra's cabinet, perhaps. Maybe with the Department of Energy. But I don't think Godzilla should be carrying the nuclear codes. I think I want Mothra to have the nuclear codes, not Godzilla. I feel he's just a little too volatile, in my opinion, you know? And some people would say that sort of brashness is what we need, that sort of decisiveness and bold attitude against other world leaders. But no, I prefer Mothra's more even-tempered, measured hand. You know, Mothra 2028.
More than anything, I want a painting of President Godzilla, like in the suit and everything, holding the football, like the suitcase with the nuke codes, and just staring at it, just being like, Well,
he wouldn't... I don't think he'd use them necessarily. Or I guess it would be... would he? Because he uses atomic breath. Godzilla isn't... Well, the thing is that Godzilla is a manifestation of, like, nuclear power unleashed. He himself is not necessarily actually anti-nuclear. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he is a nuclear bomb. He does not have a pro or anti-nuclear stance. That being said, when I say, like, nuclear power is fine. Like, nuclear power is one of our most efficient energy sources, and we have figured out good ways of, like, dealing with it. It's been a long time since Chernobyl, you know? I mean, the Tokyo-Fukushima disaster was very recent in our history, you know, and that was not great, but that was also a tsunami and earthquake happened, you know?
And then they made a Godzilla about it.
Yeah, that wasn't,
Shin Godzilla.
But that wasn't like Chernobyl, where it was a breakdown of like human error and negligence. The Fukushima disaster was, I mean, that was like a fucking earthquake, you know?
There was a lot of human error and negligence in this movie, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, I had a fun time. I have to admit, I had a real fun time watching Jet Jaguar and Godzilla and Gigan and Megalon just beat the hell out of each other and throw each other around, even if the rest of the movie and also the parts of the movie where that happened made zero sense. Here's the thing. This is much better than Godzilla versus Gigan because the fights were actually fun to watch.
Yeah, I wonder if the popularity of this movie in America was also like, this movie was wacky and kind of like, it was comedic.
Yeah.
At one point, the kid swings in on this box hanging from a rope to knock out one of the Seatopian spies. And all I'm thinking is Miley Cyrus's I Came in Like a Wrecking Ball while this happens. There's also these like really funny comedic musical cues that keep happening. It'll be like, and it's always like a smash cut. Like it's always like a fun, not quite a Gilligan cut, but a comedic edit is happening in this film. It is funny, lighthearted, and wacky. I mean, it's the 70s. I feel like it was really popular with people that were watching this at home stoned out of their mind, like on probably weed, but also it's the 70s, so it could be any sort of psychedelics. Like, I wonder, I genuinely think that could have contributed to the popularity of this movie.
Probably. It was the 70s. Things were weird. We saw Godzilla versus Hedorah.
But to watch this, I watched this like completely sober at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was quite a picture.
So what would you rank it?
You know, that's weird because it makes no sense and it makes me mad. But also, it was not necessarily the least entertaining of the movies. I guess I would probably, I don't know if 2 stars seems harsh, but 2.5 seems too generous. 2.25?
We can't go into the quarter fractions.
Wait, I'm gonna get into, this is, my stars are gonna get real decimally as this goes on. I would say, I guess then 2 stars, you know, but it's like a 2 stars with a, not a mean 2 stars, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'd watch it again.
I'd watch it again. That's the thing. I wouldn't say that for, you know, a lot of these other movies, especially after having watched them at least twice per episode.
I would put on this movie, like, if I was hanging out with friends or whatever, and it was like, let's watch a stupid but, like, entertaining Godzilla movie, I would put this one on because this would be fun to watch in a group because it's kind of like The Room, where it's so bad it's kind of good, and you're just sort of making fun of it the entire time.
Yeah. This feels like watching an episode of Mountain Monsters. Like, you're not here for quality production. You're here for the zaniness. You're here for the wackiness.
Yeah. There is also, at one point, I think I wrote down that it kind of feels a little Doctor Who-y or Doctor Who-esque in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the whole like Easter Island and like secret civilization thing and what do you mean? No, it's not. It wasn't the natives of the Easter Island that were managed to pull off this incredible feat of engineering and art and sculpture. No, it was a secret, super advanced society, obviously. That sort of thing. It felt a little Doctor Who-esque and also a little like, you know, one of those things where it's like later, this is like, erasing the achievements of indigenous peoples that had different sort of technology from those of these colonizer nations, and thus we're like, oh, aliens had to do it. You know, that feels a little, we've realized how problematic that sort of line of thinking is as we've gone on.
Yeah, for the most part. Okay, cool. So I would say in a vacuum, I would make this 2.5, but because the whole, like, okay, we're going to introduce the atomic nuclear testing at the beginning and then touch nothing with it, I'm going to drop this down to 2 stars. Just like in the context of the greater Godzilla, you kind of have to account for that. That said, this was a fun movie.
It's too entertaining to put it below 2 stars.
Yes.
But if I was going off of like just the script, like just like stripping away everything about it that made it like entertaining, it was entertaining in spite of the script in many ways.
Yep. Most definitely.
Or in spite of the story, it was still entertaining. I feel like it very easily could have been much worse.
Well, Kayla.
Yeah.
What are we watching next?
Oh, fuck. We finally have gotten there. Next, we'll be watching Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, 1974. Be sure to watch the Japanese language version, not the English version. If you liked this podcast, be sure to subscribe, give us a rating, leave a comment, and share with a friend. Follow us on social media. We got the links in the show notes. We also have a Ko-fi. You can support us there and get access to cool bonus content like extra episodes and access to the private Discord, where you can talk with other geeks about Godzilla and all things Digital Kaiju. Check it out! Gorilla Whale is a production of Digital Kaiju Studios. It is hosted and produced by Kevin Carpenter and Kayla Knudsen. Gorilla Whale has no official affiliation with Toho, Legendary, or any other companies associated with the Godzilla franchise. We thank you for watching along with us. Until next time, watch out for kaiju.
Watch out for kaiju.